I got the moves. I got the moves. I'm making moves. You gotta move. You gotta make the city move. Like, whoa. I make the city move. I got the move.
The 2019 offseason was one of the craziest and greatest of all time. Close to 40% of the league changed teams, including multiple superstars, and parity was officially restored in the NBA. It's now been around a year since the majority of these moves happened, but did they work out? Have these teams since regretted their decision, or did it work out as planned? In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at all the major free agency signings and trades of the 2019 offseason and giving them a grade from A+ to F. For those who are wondering, I was actually planning to make this once the offseason officially hit and a champion was crowned, but now the NBA season is suspended, I honestly can't be bothered waiting that long, and I think we can still get a pretty good idea on how well these moves panned out by the 70 games or so played in this regular season. If you're new here and enjoy the video, please be sure to subscribe for more NBA content like this. I'm trying to hit 8,000 subscribers by the end of May, so all support is very much appreciated. But with that all being said, let's get right into these grades.
Lucas.
Anthony Davis to the Los Angeles Lakers. The first major trade of the 2019 offseason that occurred was a few days before draft night, where the Los Angeles Lakers sent Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and some first-round picks to New Orleans for Anthony Davis. This trade has clearly worked out amazingly for the Lakers. With him, they've gone from a bottom seed team to the top of the Western Conference, which due to all the other trades became extremely strong, and I'd say a lot harder to compete with than recent years due to how stacked and evenly spread out a lot of the teams were. So it makes the feat even more impressive. Davis averaged 27 and 10 this season and was a contender for MVP, and to many was also the clear-cut defensive player of the year, if not a top 3 candidate for it. Overall, I think it's fair to say this trade was phenomenal for the Lakers, and it's why I'm giving it a grade of an A+. It made them championship contenders, and they were probably the favourite just as the season was suspended. They haven't missed Lonzo and Ingram at all, and again, it's just been an extremely impressive year by the Los Angeles Lakers. Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, Josh Hart to the New Orleans Pelicans. The other side of that Anthony Davis trade was of course the New Orleans Pelicans, as they received the young core of Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Josh Hart. Brandon Ingram absolutely killed it this year, and until Zion arrived, was averaging close to 26 or 27 points per game, and to many is the NBA's most improved player for this season. Lonzo Ball finally came into his own this year as well, and is starting to look like the player we expected him to become back on draft day in 2017. Josh Hart was pretty irrelevant though this season, and was probably the worst part of the trade. The Pelicans were on a playoff push as the season got suspended, but many may think that was from the arrival of Zion Williamson, and since he technically wasn't a part of this trade, I can't really say the Pelicans were going to the playoffs with these assets, as to be fair, they were one of the worst teams until Zion came back. With that being said though, this trade has helped them hugely prepare for the future, and they seem like a perfect core to fit around potential superstar Zion Williamson. So right now, I'm gonna have to give them a solid B+. If they made the playoffs, I'd consider giving them an A, but as it's early on and this team is still very young, it's a bit hard to say. But from what we've seen this season, with Lonzo and Ingram both breaking out, I think a B+ is a fair grade to give out. Kemba Walker to the Boston Celtics. One of the first major free agency signings to occur on July 1st was Kemba Walker's departure from Charlotte, as he headed to Boston to replace Kyrie Irving. At the time, it seemed like a pretty average move. Most thought it wouldn't exactly alter the Celtics' win rate at all. Kemba was seen as a worse Kyrie with better leadership, basically. Kemba did statistically regress this year, averaging only 21 points and 5 assists for the year, but this was completely fine, as it allowed Jason Tatum to emerge as an all-star player, and Jaylen Brown began to flourish. Walker's role on Boston has slowly diminished as the year went on, but it's been completely fine, as he seems okay with it, and the Celtics have been winning. Overall, Kemba's unselfish attitude has allowed the Celtics to take the 3rd seed in the East, and has given Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown an opportunity to develop and thrive. This is why I think a year on, this signing deserves an A. Whilst his on-court impact is pretty standard, Kemba's leadership and unselfish play has largely benefited the Celtics, something Kyrie failed to do a couple seasons ago. The stats don't show the full picture, but Kemba has been a huge reason as to why the Celtics succeeded so much this season. Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant to the Brooklyn Nets. Two of the craziest signings that happened on the first day of free agency was the teaming up of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. Unfortunately, as we all know, Durant was injured this past season for its entirety, which affected the Nets' success a lot, and Kyrie Irving also rarely played, only playing a total of 20 games for the season. However, Kyrie did have career best numbers this season, and if KD is fully healthy by next season, this duo could be one to be reckoned with, and I think they could be a favourite for the championship in 2021. Overall, it's quite hard to say how good these signings were for Brooklyn right now, due to both stars being injured for the majority of the year. But from what I've seen, especially with their current roster, the Nets have the potential to be multiple-time champions. That's why I've decided to give them a C+ today. They haven't showcased a lot yet, and they certainly are not in their final form, but I think Kyrie and KD have the potential to be the best duo in the league, which is so exciting. But with that being said though, this is based on this season, and a 7th seed finish isn't exactly amazing. However, I know the Nets do not regret their signings right now at all, and are just counting down the days until next season arrives. But again, just for now, they get a C+, but obviously, this can become an A or higher in the near future. D'Angelo Russell to the Golden State Warriors. Though the Golden State Warriors lost Kevin Durant in this offseason, KD was nice enough to let the Warriors know his plans to leave, so they could try get something back for him. In the end, they got back D'Angelo Russell, which at the time seemed huge, but it's not panned out well at all for the Warriors. D'Lo is no longer a member of Golden State, being traded to the Timberwolves this past deadline for Andrew Wiggins. It's unfortunate, as the Warriors never got to really see the full potential of a Steph Curry and D'Angelo Russell backcourt, as Curry was out for most of the season for one reason or another. The trade at the deadline also doesn't make a lot of sense to me also, as I don't think Wiggins is a good fit in the Warriors system, and the Warriors definitely could have gotten a lot more in return for D'Angelo Russell, especially on a day like the 2020 NBA draft. Overall, unfortunately, this move has to be an F for me. At best, maybe a D, but it clearly did not work out for the Warriors, so I'm gonna stick with an F here. Had Curry actually played for the season and the duo of him and D'Lo had worked, I may give it a different grade, but that didn't happen, and due to it, the Warriors now have the worst record in the entire league. Injuries have obviously played a role in it, but the fact D'Lo's gone from the roster now is a sign things weren't working out as planned, so unfortunately, it's an F from me for this signing. Kawhi Leonard and Paul George to the Los Angeles Clippers. Two of the most absurd and out of nowhere moves to happen in free agency last year was the surprise pairing of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. Now obviously, one was traded and one wasn't, but I'll combine them here, and for OKC, I'll combine their return packages from the Paul George and Westbrook deals. Anyway, the Clippers managed to steal PG-13 and Kawhi this past summer out of nowhere. Everyone assumed Kawhi was either returning to Toronto or going to the Lakers, and Paul George was expected to run it back in OKC with Russell Westbrook. However, neither of those happened, and now we are left with where we are today. So, did this all work out for the Clippers? Pretty clearly, it did. The Clippers are the second seed in the West, and they've managed to get there whilst having their two superstars regularly sit out games or recover from pre-existing injuries. Kawhi averaged 27, 7 and 5 for the season on elite efficiency, and Paul George continued that trend with stats of 21, 5 and 3 on close to 40% from the three-point line. Overall, there's no debate here. These moves have to be given an A for the Clippers. I can't give them an A+, however, because if this season does end up getting cancelled, it does negatively affect their future a lot. But if you want to know more about that and want a deeper analysis on it, check out my video I made the other week on the Clippers. But still, the Clippers majorly improved this season with these pickups and are seen as a legit title contender, perhaps the favourites to win it all to some. At the end of the day, the Clippers have made a playoff contender into a championship favourite with these moves in just one season, and I think they wouldn't change it at all if we were to go back in time. So to me, they deservingly get an A today. Russell Westbrook to the Houston Rockets. This to me is a very interesting one. The Rockets started well to begin this season, and Harden was absolutely killing it, averaging almost 40 points per game in the first couple months. However, Westbrook struggled out the gate in Houston, and it wasn't until around January when Westbrook really began to shine. However, there was a major turning point for Westbrook when Capella was traded, as it allowed him to back down opposing players in the post and not have to worry about his awful three-point shot. On Houston, Westbrook's three-point attempt rate has dropped dramatically, and this has overall benefited his game, reasserting him, at least in my eyes, back into the top 4 or 5 point guards in the league conversation. Houston started winning more frequently throughout January and February, and there were real discussions about people considering Russ as the number 1 guy on the Rockets, not James Harden. Unfortunately, Houston fell into a slump in March, causing them to slip in the standings, but overall, I think this has been a positive move for Houston. Many expected Westbrook to struggle significantly in Houston's system. Many believed the Rockets would fail with him on their team. However, those people have been proven to be extremely wrong, as I think it's fair to say the Rockets have played better with Westbrook on their team instead of Chris Paul. Overall, whilst Houston's record may not reflect it, I think the fact Westbrook slid in so perfectly into the Rockets system when people expected it to be a terrible fit means the Rockets deserve a B+ with this move. They aren't favourites for the championship by any stretch, but I think replacing Paul with Westbrook has largely benefited Houston and has allowed them to break even more barriers with their system, such as starting PJ Tucker at centre. It's been an interesting journey this season as a Rockets fan, but at the end of the day, I can say I'm glad we made the trade in the off-season, because when the playoffs do return, I fully expect the Rockets to be an underrated contender for the NBA championship. Chris Paul, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, etc. to the Oklahoma City Thunder. And finally, we have the OKC side of things for those last 2 trades. I'm just gonna say it straight up, the Thunder deserve an A+. Before the season started, no one at all expected OKC to get where they are now. No one thought this team would be near the playoffs, let alone a top 5 seed. To be fair, I did see some people say the Thunder could make it, myself included, but I was expecting maybe an 8th or 7th seed at best, not a top 5 one. Wouldn't you know it though, Oklahoma has made the players they got back from those trades work, and work fantastically. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had a breakout year and averaged close to 20 points a game. Chris Paul has returned to All-Star form, making the All-Star game, and guys like Danilo Gallinari and Steven Adams, etc. added to the extra depth of this team. Not only this, but the Thunder are set up perfectly for the future as well, with numerous future first round picks headed their way from all of these trades. Overall for OKC, they have made some trades that looked mediocre for them on the surface turn into something unbelievable, and for that reason, they without a doubt deserve an A+ here today. And that will conclude the video. What do you guys think of this? Do you agree with the grades I handed out to these teams? What would you give each of these teams a year on? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.
9 out of 10, I'ma keep it zen. 9 out of 10, can you please fix your lens? 9 out of 10, got you playing pretend. 9 out of 10, here we go again. 9 out of 10, could've bought the fam a Benz. 9 out of 10, are you making amends? 9 out of 10, probably lost an end.